Have breaking news, including the music there. Just now, Bernie Sanders, the independent senator from the state of Vermont, announced he is running for president again. He just made this announcement on Vermont Public Radio. I believe we have that sound. Let's listen to it.
By just operating inside the Beltway. The only way that I know well, first of all, I wanted to let the people of the state of Vermont know about this first. And what I promise to do is, as I go around the country, is to take the values that all of us in Vermont are proud of, our belief in justice, in community, in grassroots politics, and town meetings. That's what I'm going to carry all over this country. I think the current occupant of the White House is an embarrassment to our country. I think he is a pathological liar every day. He is telling one lie or another. And it gives me no pleasure to say that. But I also think he is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, somebody who is gaining cheap political points by trying to pick on minorities, often undocumented immigrants. And I cannot recall, certainly in my lifetime, and I think in modern history, that we've had a president who actually goes out of his way to try to divide the American people up based on where we were born or the color of our skin or our gender or whatever it may be. So, you know, I think what a president has got to do is bring our people together and not divide us up. And that's certainly one reason I'm running. And the second reason is we began the political revolution in the 2016 campaign, and now it's time to move that revolution forward and make sure that that vision, those ideas are implemented into policy.
Now,
the headline there, Bernie Sanders is running for president again. The runner-up in the Democratic race in 2016 is now in the race. That's a big deal, John.
It's a huge deal. And, you know, history says that the person who comes in second the last time around usually is in a very strong position to win a nomination this time around. That's not necessarily the case in Bernie Sanders, but there's no question his impact on the Democratic debate within that party has been stunning. He almost single-handedly, after being really a lone voice in the woods on the far, far left, really changed the debate, and it gave strength to the extent that you've got a whole generation of candidates running as Democratic socialists in the Bernie Sanders model, and he can expect to draw on that energy. He's not going to have that lane alone anymore.
Yes, well, there you go. That's
success.
Exactly, that's the point. And that the political sands have shifted in the time since he came in second. And so when he says we started the political revolution, it's time for us to finish it, a lot of people have filled that lane.
Yeah, there's lots of generals in the political revolution now. And it just in terms of where the money goes, where the enthusiasm goes, Bernie Sanders is going to have to work for it this time, perhaps in a way that, not saying he didn't work for it last time, but there was no alternative to Bernie Sanders before, and now there are several.
You heard his long statement to Vermont Public Radio. He talked a lot about race there. He did not do well with African-American voters in the primary last time, so a very specific plea there. Also interesting, Bernie Sanders did very well with younger voters in 2016, not so much with older voters. Now there are a lot of younger candidates in the field there. That could be a challenge. Can he win over the older voters? That remains to be seen. And Joe Lockhart, now what Senator Kamala Harris said in New Hampshire yesterday rings even more to me. She perhaps had a premonition that Bernie Sanders was getting in the race today, because look what she volunteered when talked to by a reporter yesterday. Listen to this.
Well, the people of New Hampshire will tell me what's required to compete in New Hampshire, but I will tell you I am not a Democratic socialist.
Kamala Harris volunteering she's not a Democratic socialist. Bernie Sanders is, Joe.
Yeah, listen, I think the Democratic Socialist movement in the Democratic Party is the single most overblown story so far in this cycle. You have a couple of high-profile people who've gotten into Congress on a very liberal sort of Democratic Socialist out of 235. So I don't think there's much to that. And Bernie Sanders did come in second last time. He also came in second to last. I mean, there were only three candidates, and he lost. The left progressive lane is much more crowded. I think he's going to have a hard time getting traction this time. There are many more, I think, much more dynamic candidates that will appeal for these younger voters. He does have a base. He will be a player in this. But I think ultimately, as I said before, electability is going to be the single most important thing. And I think most Democrats think that he has changed the debate in a positive way, but he's not going to beat Donald Trump in 2020.
Well, that's probably true. But don't forget, he won Michigan in the primaries last time around. This was not a fringe candidate. He fought his way. And one marker of his success is that the Democratic Party, for the first time in recent memory, there are more self-identified liberals than moderates. It's still pretty close, but that shift is not insignificant.
All right, guys, thank you very much for being here with us through this breaking political news.
Yeah, much more on that throughout the show because it's obviously developing before our eyes. In the meantime,
he was a lone voice on the far left in 2016. Now Bernie Sanders is the newest voice to enter the 2020 Democratic presidential race. It's a crowded one. He is far from alone, even in his most progressive positions. But the Vermont Independent says that he has not changed. The country has. Sanders announced his campaign on the web in a morning show interview a short time ago.
Senator Sanders, you're going to run for president.
I am going to run for president. That's correct.
What's going to be different this time?
We're going to win.
That would be a difference. Our Ryan Nobles joins us now. You're out on the campaign trail with Sanders. What's the level of excitement you're seeing there?
Well, there's certainly a lane for Bernie Sanders. He still has a lot of that loyal support that he had back in 2016. But there are a lot of people pointing out this morning that A, he's still not officially a Democrat, and B, he is older as you compare him to the rest of the field. But the big thing that Sanders is going to have going for him is that the Democratic Party has moved closer to where he is on many of these hot button issues. And of course, back in 2016, many of these issues like Medicare for all, free college tuition, a $15 minimum wage, they were considered to be radical. Now it seems to be the price of entry in this 2020 Democratic field. And this morning in the interview that he did with CBS, Bernie Sanders wants to make it clear to Democratic voters, while all of these candidates are talking about these issues now, he was the leader. Take a listen.
In 2016, many of the ideas that I talked about, Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, making public colleges and universities tuition free. All of those ideas, people will say, oh, Bernie, they're so radical, they are extreme. The American people just won't accept those ideas. Well, you know what's happened in over 3 years? All of those ideas and many more are now part of the political mainstream.
And of course, he's got a distinct advantage, Jim, because he has a vast network of online donors. That spigot he never turned off from the 2016 campaign, and his campaign telling us already this morning that just by 7:30, and he officially announced at 7 o'clock Eastern time, they have donations pouring in from all 50 states. So no matter what, Bernie Sanders will be a force to be reckoned with in this Democratic field.
A lot of the other candidates would envy that network. Ryan Nobles, thanks very much. Let's discuss now with Dana Bash, CNN chief political correspondent, and Jeff Zeleny, CNN senior White House correspondent who is in New Hampshire today. Dana, Jeff, thanks to both of you. Dana, I wonder, just big picture, because, you know, Bernie Sanders, one of his chief advantages in 2016 was he was really the only option B for Democrats. Now you got a very crowded field, including specifically a crowded field left of center, to the left end of the party. Where does he fit into that field today?
He's, you know, clearly the original of the modern day part of that field, but he's now in a crowded part of the field. And I think maybe one of the most telling examples of that reality for Bernie Sanders is a statement that DFA, Democracy for America, just put out. This is a progressive group that endorsed Bernie Sanders early on in 2016. And now this group is saying that although they did, in 2016, blessed with a diverse field of candidates committed to inclusive populist reforms, we're looking forward to seeing how Sanders and the movement behind him make the case for political revolution in a very different 2020 contest. Again, I think that says it all. And sort of on the revolution theme, you know your history, Jim Sciutto. Sometimes revolutions eat their leaders. And this might be the case, or maybe it's not.
That is quite a phrase. Jeff Zeleny, you know, Sanders is right when he says that a lot of those positions that were outliers in 2016, you know, particularly between Sanders and Hillary Clinton, you know, healthcare for all, et cetera, if they're not mainstream, you have several other Democratic candidates who were staking out positions there. Does that make it harder for Sanders to distinguish himself, to stand out in this field?
I think it does, in the sense that he's not the one alternative. He's not the alternative on the policy side, and he's not the only alternative to anyone but Hillary Clinton. So it makes it much harder in many ways. One thing that he has going for him, of many things, he's done it before, so he knows what it takes to run for president. He has those supporters, as Ryan was talking about. But one thing that I detect above all from any Democratic voter, any independent voter, they don't know who they're supporting yet. This is the very beginning of this, but they do know that they want to find someone to defeat Donald Trump. That is going to be the difference maker in this entire election from 4 years ago. At that point, it was an open seat. But the fact that all of these Democrats are running against Donald Trump is going to change everything in terms of how voters are looking for someone. Speaking of Donald Trump, he just is welcoming Senator Sanders into the race. He just issued a statement just a few moments ago. And of course, he is talking about socialism. So Bernie Sanders, even running for president again, is playing directly into the Trump argument, where he believes the Democratic Party, all these Democratic candidates, simply are socialists. Now, Bernie Sanders is still an independent. He's running as a Democrat. So this is one of the complicating factors here for this party. But no question at all, a difference for Bernie Sanders is that he's going to be compared vis-a-vis, can he beat Donald Trump? A lot of Democrats I'm talking to, yes, they want purity, but they are also looking for pragmatism, who can sort of attract other voters here. So that is a big challenge for him, Jim.
Dan and Jeff, stay with me because there's more to discuss. Another of the half dozen senators that are trying for the Democratic presidential nomination, wrapping up her first visit to New Hampshire. Of course, I speak of Senator Kamala Harris. CNN's Kyung La is traveling with her in Manchester. What message is she trying to stake out there, particularly as her competition grows in this race?
Getting to Jeff's point about 2020 being a very different game than 2016, Senator Harris, is trying to stake out a different path, that she is a new path and a new way forward. I'm at Politics and Eggs. This is a chance for the people in this room. It's a New Hampshire tradition. They get to shake the hand of somebody. They get to see the candidate up close, something vitally important here in New Hampshire. And this room is absolutely buzzing about Senator Bernie Sanders jumping in. I talked to some people who said that they're very excited to see a big name jump in for the Democrats. But then I spoke to another woman who gives you the 2020 perspective. She said to me, quote, "I wish he would just go away. I am sick of old white guys." She wants to see Kamala Harris get in.